You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Red Moon Podcast. It's Christmas! Christmas! Everybody loves Christmas! We're back, guys, every Tuesday night here live on YouTube, Facebook, all the social medias out there. Even got a special guest, that's right. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Vanilla.
Sean Sebastian.
That's not it. You know what it is. That's Vanilla Steam over there. And
Klaus! She has crawled out of her Klaus hole right before Thanksgiving to take the lives of all the ungrateful children.
Before we get on to Klaus, we have our special guest sitting right next to me.
Edie?
She's under the table.
Hi, it's Nino.
He's from Boston.
Nino's. I'm from here.
Well, you are. You're visiting us from Boston.
Visiting from Boston.
From Boston.
So glad to have
Hi,
you.
Megan. She's not watching, but I'm going to tell her hi anyway.
She might be.
It is the Bachelor in Paradise finale, so she is absolutely not watching.
No, definitely not. Well, especially after
Why are you here missing it?
That's a good question. I'm getting in trouble for it. That's fine.
Smacks of the smut the Klauses would promote.
After she is back. Our candle's not lit, though. It's not ready.
She has not stolen the lives and souls of children to light the candle yet.
Nope. No, she is not. That's for, she's got a whole month to prepare.
She came out early.
She is. Well, I figured, look.
It's like when the groundhog doesn't see its chateau.
I didn't have a whole lot of time this past week. Or I was looking ahead, and I don't have a whole lot of time after Thanksgiving. So I was like, you know what, this past weekend, it's setting up for the holiday and the season of
we
good
do have
tidings
a
and
holiday
goodwill.
review, so it fits.
It fits.
And I mean, I feel like a lot of people tend to, like, right after Thanksgiving, that weekend, kind of. I mean, even during the week of Thanksgiving, I know a lot of people start to decorate. So I kind of feel like,
Hey,
Not at my house.
that's the kickoff to
Not at
to
your
Christmas.
house?
No, I am extremely strict when it comes to Christmas decorations. They do not go up until the day after Thanksgiving.
No, see, I'm already
Oh,
got
wow.
mine going.
Edie's,
I love
getting
it.
Neil.
Get your,
He's our
get your toilet mouth off.
Nothing
yeah.
puts me in the mood for Thanksgiving like decorating for Christmas. It sounds back. Well, that's what I'm
Yeah,
grateful for.
you're like Walmart.
I'm thankful for Christmas, so I
Same.
celebrate Thanksgiving
Well,
by
here's the
decorating.
thing. We always had guests, like our whole family, come over for Thanksgiving, so we always had to prepare the week before and get all the decorations up. And I remember strictly, and I did it this year too. Oh,
Getting
just
smacked
that
in the back
beautiful-
of the head
that
over your horsey
1985
yeah,
yeah.
ornament.
That was awesome.
I remember that distinctly too.
But I also watched Wizard of Oz while I was decorating.
Yeah.
Well, actually, post
They used to air it around Thanksgiving every
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
They don't. It's like Charlie Brown and Peanuts. Now that Apple owns it, they don't.
you,
They don't. air
don't
it.
you do it. That's why I own them all. I own them, and I just pop that disc in, and I
Can't watch
it.
it on air anymore. Nope, they don't do that. Tradition's dead.
Apple's evil.
Tradition is dead. But no, Neil, we're so glad to have you here talking about traditions dying. There's one that always ends up not disappointing, and that's you coming back every year.
Thank you.
We're so glad to have you here.
We're so happy the Commanders bring you back every year.
every year.
Every year.
Every year.
Every year.
How's it feel to be back in Louisville?
It's
every
cold.
year.
Yeah. Is it not cold up in Boston?
It's not this cold.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's been colder here than in Boston.
Wow, because this week's
Crazy.
actually a warm week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
colder
yeah, I don't
last
know
day
about
was
this
actually
week.
warmer than
Yeah.
most. Yeah.
It's
The
supposed to be,
only
I think,
reason,
the warmest tomorrow.
The only reason I know this is because every time I call my dad, he says, "Well, it's it's gonna get down to the 20s overnight," and he just gives me all the details.
Gives you a weather report.
And then
Yeah.
Megan, in preparation for coming here, she's looking at the weather every day, and she's like, "It's gonna be so cold there." And I'm like, "It's like 10
She's
days out."
threatening it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's gonna change.
Yeah.
Trust me."
It's Kentucky, you know.
We get all
Yeah,
four
I know.
seasons in one day.
Yeah.
It happens.
It happens.
But yes, we do have pre-Christmas festivities. A new movie dropped this past week. Mr. Peter Billingsley returns in his Ralphie role from A Christmas Story.
Yep, I have thoughts.
And we have a review, and we will discuss those thoughts. So here is our review, yes, of none other than our first holiday movie of the year, technically not counted, but A Christmas Story Christmas.
While the holiday season seems to begin earlier and earlier each year, to the joy of some and chagrin of others, I would warrant that traditionally, Thanksgiving weekend is the real kickoff to the Christmas season. This is not to neglect Thanksgiving Day, and it does deserve its due, but to me, the holidays always felt like the holidays going into Thanksgiving week. Maybe it's fitting then that one of the most popular Christmas films of all time would get a sequel that kicks off the season going into Thanksgiving. A Christmas Story, based on the semi-autobiographical stories and novels from Gene Shepard, has become a massive cult classic and cemented itself as part of the Christmas zeitgeist. The sequel, titled A Christmas Story Christmas, has dropped on HBO Max. Seeing the return of Peter Billingsley as an adult Ralphie, Billingsley also co-wrote the story for the film, served as a producer alongside Vince Vaughn, and also takes over as the film's narrator, which makes sense as the late Gene Shepard was the original voice of adult Ralphie narrating the first film. It's logical that now adult Billingsley would just step into the role. Directed by Clay Kaitis, who had previously directed Netflix's The Christmas Chronicles, with nearly all of the original major cast returning, A Christmas Story Christmas is a fairly well-made sequel that does its best to honor the original. Ralphie, now an aspiring writer in the same vein of Gene Shepard, whom he's based upon, learns of his old man's passing and travels with his family back to his hometown of Holman, Indiana, where he hopes to create the best Christmas ever for his now widowed mother and his wife and children, wanting to recreate the same magic his father always seemed to create during the holidays. A Christmas Story Christmas is a sweet and endearing film, with wholesome moments and is faithful to the original, while being authentic to its new setting of the 70s. But the approach to the movie all feels too cookie-cutter in style. It's not a carbon copy nostalgia grab that so many sequels end up being, and while there are plenty of throwbacks to the original, the film is never guilty of trying to overly recreate each memorable moment from the first film, even at times when a significant or emotional callback could have done the narrative justice. It's just all a bit too milquetoast, however, which is, I think, the film's biggest problem. From Billingsley's narration and acting to the overall narrative itself, much of the magic and wonder of the original film is lost. Yes, the original is told through the eyes of a child Ralphie, but the narration is still an adult Ralphie remembering back to his childhood. Billingsley's narration, while a decent imitation, is painfully always that, a good imitation. It lacks the emotions and raw excitement that Gene Shepard himself delivered, and much of this carries throughout the movie. It also seems telling to me that the movie's director is responsible for The Christmas Chronicles, itself a decent Christmas film that just lacks depth and heart, the same problems A Christmas Story Christmas suffers. Kaitis' resume also includes the Angry Birds film and a few of the new Peanuts specials that have been produced for Apple TV+, which themselves feel like hollow imitations of Charles Schulz's brilliant writing. If nothing else, Kaitis can make a wholesome family entertainment, but he seems to lack the charm, emotions, and witty humor that makes a truly brilliant family film. And this stands true for A Christmas Story Christmas, which, much like Kaitis' work with Peanuts, feels like a just off-the-mark attempt at capturing Gene Shepard's humor and writing. A Christmas Story Christmas is by no means a bad film, nor a bad Christmas movie. It has some solid laughs with Ralphie now navigating adulthood, certain narrations reflecting his adult mind compared to the original's childhood mind are well, fine, and hilarious, though others fall short. And the film's climax and emotional crux lands well and offers a fantastic emotional callback to the original. Sadly, though, it is a collection of better moments spread throughout a mostly mediocre film. And without the greatness that was the original, the sequel just doesn't hold up well on its own. Even still, its values and message are in line with the first movie, and as a kickoff to Christmas, it is a pleasant watch. It won't be receiving any 24-hour marathons, but it's worth checking out if you're a fan. I give A Christmas Story Christmas 2.5 out of 4 stars.
2.5 out of 4 stars. Now, real quick before we discuss any further, you heard the little crack of the opener.
Snap, crackle,
pop.
The crack
Of the can.
That pop.
I wanted to give a shout out to our buddy Neil here, who brought us this wonderful gift of. We've had it on the show before. This isn't the first time that
The first time we had it was because he bought it for us and had it shipped to us.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. That was for our 300th episode. Which
That was a saga.
came late. But
I don't know if y'all
it
noticed. Up here on the screen, 396.
I
We're
know.
getting close to 400.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Oh man. 400 big ones.
I can't wait for episode 500.
Hey, that'll be in 2 years.
That's a big one.
Whoops, yeah, 396. There it is. We're getting ready.
396.
All right, let's talk about it, guys. Christmas Story Christmas. 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Yeah.
Let's go around the table real quick. Neil, we're going to start with you.
4.5 stars.
Nice.
Oh,
Sorry,
wow.
no, I'd actually give it 2.25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
already know that's invalid.
Yeah.
I
Sean,
didn't see it.
you didn't see it.
I didn't watch it.
Okay, fair point. All right, Sean, what about you?
1.5.
1.5.
wow.
I was struggling.
Yeah, he almost gave it 3.
Almost gave it 3. I settled
Wow.
on 2.5. Here's the thing. Because, and it's sad, and I kind of talked with Keith about this a little bit.
Did I
It's
talk you
kinda
down
sad.
from it? It's like talking
No.
him off the ledge. Don't jump.
Don't do it.
No, you're fine. Just
But no, it's sad that nowadays, if something is remotely not woke,
Yeah.
I almost give it a
You wanna
little bit of a
reward it?
nudge.
It's like
I want
a
to
pat on the
reward
back
it.
for
Yeah.
not being woke.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be that way. But it's becoming so increasingly rare to see that it does tug at my heartstrings. It did more than that. It wasn't just that it wasn't woke.
No,
the
it had
story
some. It
of,
had some moments.
right. And so I will say that I ended up on 2.5 because it is not. It's definitely not a Christmas classic like the original.
It will not get a 24-hour marathon yearly.
and our old. Well, that's not. It is an old movie, but our old review of Christmas Story original is on the website.
Yeah, I gave it 4.
4 out of 4 stars.
I gave that one 4 stars.
Oh yeah, and it is. It's a perfect classic. I know for some of you all, and I know Neil, you're
There's
in this
people who
camp.
would not agree, but
You don't really consider it. You just don't watch it every year. It's not a classic.
No, I've
to
just
you.
never seen it.
He's never seen it.
What?
We just had this conversation.
I thought you said you had, and you just don't consider it to be. I didn't know you hadn't seen
I
it.
have never seen it.
it
Would
airs.
you be willing to watch it?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
It comes on
I'll
every
make
year.
I'll make Megan watch it.
Was
24 hours
I mean,
every
she
Christmas.
loves Christmas, so
Well,
she'll watch it.
What movie did you just finish watching that you thought was better than this one because you haven't seen it?
Falling for Christmas?
There it
yeah,
is.
Falling for
Lindsay
Christmas.
Lohan's return.
Do
guys.
not watch it.
Netflix.
No, just
What's the rating? What star rating would you give that one?
Yeah, what is off the wall?
oh god. 1.
Oh wow.
It's on the Damon scale.
It-
Water scale.
The water scale.
We should have given people water instead
Instead
of
of
made the
that movie.
Yeah.
Lindsay
It's, I guess,
Lohan
really
needed a
bad.
return. Okay.
Well, she got it, but it's obviously not up to par. But what about this movie?
I just, like I said, it never. Okay, so Gene Shepard, who wrote basically the autobiographical, you know what I'm saying, the memoirs, basically that the original Christmas Story is based off of. He did the original narration for that movie as well, the actual author, and listening to Peter Billingsley, who takes over since Gene Shepard passed, and Peter Billingsley's now an adult, so it makes sense that he can be adult Ralphie narrating the story. I felt like his narration is basically a good representation for the entire movie. It's a close mimic. Like, you could tell like he's trying to be what Gene Shepard was in the original, but it completely falls flat. It's like he doesn't have the same exuberance. He doesn't have the same cadence, the same mannerisms. Like, you could tell he's trying to mimic it. Like, there's the scene when he's like, "Oh boy, the old house," and you could tell the words are similar to what he would have said in the original, but they're not delivered the same, and it just kind of misses the mark. And I felt that about this whole movie. You could tell that they were trying to honor the original movie, and it wasn't a complete carbon copy where sometimes sequels will just rehash
Which I was happy
the same
about.
exact thing. But even then, like you mentioned it when we were talking, and I agreed, there were even moments where I felt like they could have
add a little bit more of a reference to certain things, like the BB gun.
That was
it's
a big
like
one.
okay, there's an emotional crux to certain moments that you do want to see paid off in the sequel.
If there's one thing that's a standout and iconic from the original, it is the Red Ryder BB gun.
well, yeah, it was the whole plot
And
revolves
it's like,
around it.
I get that you may not want to focus on it completely, but it should have played a more prominent role in this film.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but I think the thing that I appreciated most about this film, and it came a little too late, was its ending, how it ends honoring the old man and his passing and its connection to the original. I liked the idea they went for there, but I
Agreed.
just felt like overall the movie's execution just completely missed the mark.
Sean, what about you? Giving it 1.5.
Yeah, I hated it. As somebody that watches A Christmas Story literally anytime that it's on television, and having
For 24 hours.
having sat with my father every year of my life pretty much and watching that movie with him, it to me it did not capture any of the highlights of the original film. I agree completely with the narration part. It was monotone through the whole thing. It never got me laughing at the narration. The first movie, even though what's happening in the scene might not have been funny, the narrator and the way he's describing it is hilarious. And I think there were moments that they tried to do that in this film, but it did not pan out. But then on top of that, there were so many. So in the original movie, Ralphie is a kid. He has these daydream moments, like where he's fantasizing about things happening. Peter Billingsley in this movie is a grown freaking man who has childlike daydreams and fantasies.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think. I wish they would have. It's okay if you want to have him not growing out of the little kind of like zoning out in these like daydreams that he has. But when he's daydreaming about the same crap that he daydreamed about when he was a child, I thought like, okay, the guy's 40 years old now. Let's make him a little bit more mature, and therefore his little zone outs would be a bit more mature.
I
They
agree fully with
They
that. Yeah.
could have even used that as a plot device to show his daydreaming, how it kind of lost its whimsical, magical nature.
I kept wanting him to have, like, when it first started, the very first time he does it, I thought, surely what they're going to do with this, because I was hoping they wouldn't put that in this movie, that they would say, okay, he was a kid. That was one of the tropes of the first film of him being a child. It's funny. It makes sense because he's a kid. Now let's have him as an adult and let's start a new one. Let's do something new. And they went with the flashbacks, or not the flashbacks, but the daydreams. And then I kept waiting for them. Surely what they'll do is he'll have this daydream, and then he'll stop himself and say, "Wait a minute, like I'm not a kid anymore.
Right.
I'm a grown man. I gotta face the reality," and then not do it again throughout the film. They didn't do it. They kept on doing it. They did it more than in the original movie. There's more daydream scenes in this film than there were in the movie. I didn't feel like any of them were very fun. I felt like the humor in the movie was more slapstick with them on the sleds.
I agree.
And then there was a lot more. This is supposed to take place
balanced,
supposed to take place in the 70s, and I felt like they were using 90s humor in this movie. So I just didn't feel like that felt natural.
I just didn't think the writing and the like you said, the humor itself was witty.
No, there wasn't anything funny.
It really wasn't planned out very well.
Was the
she was awful.
She was the worst part of the film.
She was.
Her hiding behind the couch from Christmas Carolers, and this scene goes on and on and on. She trips the guy's wife, and I'm like, this is just stupid.
That was bad.
But and the wife was a ditz. She wasn't a very compelling character throughout the film.
Agreed.
Honestly, the only compelling character was Ralph. And
he was dull too.
Yeah, his brother is not featured in the film hardly at all, which it's fine. In the first film, his brother is not a main character of the film.
He's comedic relief.
Yeah, he's comedic relief. But they utilized him less in this film.
You can tell it was contrived, though.
Yeah,
they intentionally wrote him out as like, oh, you don't have any part in this plot.
Yeah,
that's all they did with him.
Yeah. Now the only thing that I will give it credit for is, again, there's this is a movie that you can watch with your kids in the room. Mm-hmm. It's not in any way just an adult only movie, which the first one wasn't either. The thing is the first movie, some of the things that were funny, and like as a kid, I sat and watched this movie with my dad, and there were things that I found funny, but most of the stuff that I laughed at were things that I laughed because my dad was laughing.
Yes.
And the only reason my dad was laughing was because he was born in 1952. He grew up the same time period that Ralph grew up. So for him, seeing this movie that was made in the 80s that's portraying the things that he saw when he was a kid, the nostalgia factor played in, for him, and that's one of the reasons it's one of his favorite movies. And I didn't grow up with metal toys like metal
right.
blimps and all and the Red Ryder BB gun, which was huge back then. It wasn't huge in the 70s, so I don't know why it would play a part in this movie. The Easy Bake Oven was huge in the 70s, and they kind of put that as one of those toys that the kids were really hoping for.
She was really wanting.
Yeah, and I get it. But even then, I felt like the props they used in the films, like when they do a film like this, they gather antiques from people who actually own them, and they say, hey, we'll pay you a little something to let us use that in this film because they don't make them anymore. We can't fake one. We need the real thing. So people donate stuff, not donate, but they volunteer stuff for the film. It's like, hey, yeah, you get to watch this movie and say, that's my Easy Bake Oven sitting on the shelf there. I got that in 1971 when it came out or whatever. But the boxes were old and wrinkled, and they're supposed to be brand new on the shelf at Macy's. And all of these, I didn't even think the props looked as authentic as they did in the 80s film using antique radios and
right. No, I will say I thought that it's funny because when I realized it was, I don't know why it took me till this year to realize that the original was filmed in the 80s. But had it really takes you back to the 50s.
It's amazing.
Or 40s from a time that I wasn't born, obviously. But it's such a, and like you said, kind of watching your parents react to it was a way of them acknowledging that it was opening up a door to their memories and their keepsakes. But it's funny because I think they did the right thing by making this a streaming film.
Oh yeah,
putting it on streaming instead of releasing it in theaters. I think releasing it in theaters would have been a debacle.
I said that, when we were talking, I was like, I could see, because with the Warner Brothers Discovery merger and them canceling certain films and them promoting certain streaming films to theatrical releases, I could see them looking at this and be like, it's decent enough to release, but it doesn't need to go anywhere near a theater. Like drop it on HBO Max and be done with it.
I do want to say, like, I thought one upside of the film was the production design. I thought it felt like the time period they were shooting in. Like they did a nice job of elevating it from the 40s up to the 70s of him being an adult, especially with it being 20 plus years since the original came out. However, I thought because they maybe spent too much on, when you have a small limited budget and you find out where all that money can go, it can only be limited to finite resources. And if the resources are spent in production design or making it look like all of the attire and everything is 70s, then you lose the luster in terms of the cinematography, in terms of the editing. It just, you can tell that took a back seat.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was where it felt like a generic TV made movie more than an actual production from Hollywood, especially returning to a classic like this. Like, that was the most disappointing thing for me. I still give it props in terms of certain emotional moments that I thought hit well. I just felt like even some of the odes or throwbacks, while I didn't want them to do full-on nostalgia trip, and I'm glad they didn't, I felt like there would have been certain pivotal things from the first movie that he would have seen in the attic that would have elicited a memory of much more than just showing replays of these scenes we've all seen 1,000 times.
Or the audio.
Right.
They would just replay the audio of something, and it's just
to me, that's just it's a constant nostalgia grab that I'm like, okay, this is overdone. And kind of going to the flashbacks or the daydreams, it's like, I think that could have been done well to add a flavor of him, like saying, yeah, okay, I'm growing up, I need to stop thinking this way, but almost in a way of also kind of hearkening back to that childhood like wonder, that it could have grounded him and rooted him into making this, the whole idea of making it a perfect Christmas now that his old man has passed.
Yeah.
And I think that could have been a nice plot device to bring him back into this whimsical childhood like wonder that they kind of missed when they tried to bring in older castmates.
Yeah.
And re-elicit this idea of no, he's returning home and he's reconvening or he's recommuning with all of these friends that he's catching up with from old, And I was like, it just missed on those moments that could have been such anchors for creating that nostalgia, like the whole reason the movie exists.
Yeah, like maybe if it was an instance of him kind of growing out of the spirit of Christmas and then coming home
Yes.
and
Yeah,
taking the
regaining
place
it.
of his father, he slowly kind of regains that childlike.
Yes.
And
That would have been fine.
And it's
but-
really only in the end, and I don't want to spoil it, but
Yeah.
the ending really did. That was the best part of the movie for me. And if
I
the
agree.
pacing, I think, was bad throughout. Again, it just had a generic pacing, and some of the antics and the scenes that were set up. I mean, yes, you could take individual scenes from the first movie and they seem like a hodgepodge, but the way it flows in the movie, it really is like watching a kid who gets to experience from like the last few days
Christmas
before
vacation,
Christmas
yeah.
break, and then once they're on Christmas break, all of these things that you would remember as a child. And it made sense the way the movie flowed. This one, I felt like the way they carried from scene to scene, these set pieces they had, you could tell what they were there and what they were aiming for, but they just didn't feel nicely knit together.
It's funny, like tying in like some of the things you all were saying as far as like the 70s set pieces being done well, but everything else being mediocre, and then like the daydreams, which I really felt the daydreams were fine. I just wish he had daydreams that adults would have, because I still
He's
daydream.
Still daydreaming about cowboys and
yeah.
robbers.
Like I have
Right.
daydreams as an adult, but I don't daydream that I'm a superhero anymore. Like I did when I was a kid, but I mean,
You don't?
no, do you?
all the time.
But
All the time.
for me, I was looking like because I always
Gotta have my chaps.
I always do a little bit of research before I write the review. So I was looking at like everybody behind the movie, and I mentioned Clay Cadis, the director, because I do think a lot of the mediocrity kind of comes from him. I was looking at his filmography, and it's like you could tell that they wanted to make the sequel to a cult classic that is huge every year, but they wanted to play it safe. They got this guy who did a Christmas Chronicles for Netflix. He did the Angry Birds movie, and then he's also done some of the newer Peanuts specials on Apple TV Plus. And even those, I mentioned, like they feel you could tell it's someone trying to mimic Charles Schultz's style, but they don't nail it. And the same thing happened with this and Gene Shepard. And I'm like, it feels like this is the guy that you go to make a safe family film, because there's nothing wrong with Christmas Chronicles. There's nothing wrong with Angry Birds. They're not the best, but they are solid children's films, family films. And I'm like, it seems like this is the guy you go to when you need a milquetoast family movie, but you're not really trying to put your all into it. Because I really felt like this would have served if they had a great writer, a good director. You could have gotten something great out of this. I think the narrative makes sense. It's just all of the execution was just very dull, and like the acting was dull.
Yeah.
Nobody was a good actor in this movie.
No.
But even
There's
Peter
a scene-
Billingsley,
No.
like
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
really thought, I just real quick,
No, you're fine.
I
I'm not-
really did think that he. It sucks because it's like it kind of reminds me of the problem we used to have before. I always do like Haley Joel Osment was like the start of child actors that
Yeah.
then grew up to
That
become
actually were, like,
they
amazing
were good.
child actors,
And
yeah.
I feel like that was the kind of the interesting thing about the Christmas Story, the original movie, is all these child actors felt genuine. They felt like they were real. They were authentic. And it's not that Peter Billingsley I felt like was fake, but he definitely seemed like, I mean, there's a reason he's been behind the scenes most of these years.
Yeah.
He grew out of his childlike wonder, and he grew in. He's not an actor by nature. It's like you nailed that when you were a child, and you probably didn't think too much about it because you weren't trying to be too much more than just yourself. And that's what nailed the original. And that's why you were cast in that role as a kid. Now that you're older, it's cool to see you return. And I hate to say it, but they weren't great. But even like Flick and they were Schwartz.
Yeah.
They were better actors than Peter.
Yeah,
and
Schwartz
he's the
wasn't
main.
bad.
No, and it's like, but sadly, we have him as the starring role. And like you said, I think his narration is really what ultimately brought it down mostly, because if you remember listening to the original narrator, who was the creator of the stories that the movie was based on, he's sitting there reading there, and he's like, no turkey a la king, no turkey a la. It's like you see it in his, like you see Peter Billingsley's face react, but the emotion behind the words and the narration is from the original writer, and you totally miss that. I mean, I know what he was going for. It's very much more down to earth and much more sentimental, soft spoken. But it just didn't fit. But the
thing
the
is,
feel that I think were
in the
trying
original
to go for.
movie, he was still an adult narrating his memories
Exactly.
of his childhood.
Yep, exactly.
So in this sequel, he's the same age basically as the narrator in the first one. You would think his emotion and his delivery would still be exactly the same. It's just now he's narrating a story about his adult life rather than a childhood memory.
Yep.
And it's just very flat and monotone. And I guess you can kind of say that with the way the movie ends, that maybe he regained kind of that Christmas spirit, and that's why the narration in the original is better. But I'm like, that's more of a cop out to me than an actual.
I agree.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm sorry. Neil's got a question.
I was just gonna ask, should they have made it, and could they have made it into a movie that could match the?
They could have made it better.
They could have.
But they
But it
shouldn't
was
have
never
made it at all.
So why touch it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to Brandon about this too on the review night. There are so many movies now that I'm like, sometimes it's just best to leave it alone. You didn't need to remake Ben-Hur. You can't touch that movie. No, a Christmas Story, I wouldn't say is the same type of epic as Ben-Hur, but I still gave it 4 stars. It's not a movie that you need to really touch.
There's a reason they air it 24 hours every Christmas.
Well, and sometimes
day,
you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. There are certain things that happen in a moment in history for that time period that become a cultural phenomenon that you're just not going to recapture that same magic. I think that's why Top Gun Maverick is so great, is because it isn't an exact carbon copy of the original. It isn't trying to be exactly like the original. I would argue it's better than the original.
It is.
Agreed.
So that's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to do something,
And that one wasn't
you have
hard
to have,
because
it's
of
not,
the
'cause
80s.
I love the original Top
Classic,
Gun,
yeah.
but it's not a 4-star movie.
No.
So it's one of those things where I think you have to know what is worth touching again, and whether you have the guts to go all in and do something unique and different and make it better than the original. Because now everybody wants to play it safe and just say, we'll just rehash everything they liked about the original and throw it in there.
You said it actually when you came over to record the review. You were talking about how it seems like now, because we're caught up in nostalgia land, and obviously because Hollywood just doesn't want to take a risk on originals.
Yeah.
But now they're trying to mimic the success of cult classics. It's like you're not even returning to something that was hugely a success back in the day as much as you are now trying to take the success of something that has come throughout the years, and you're trying to harp on that. And it's like, that's kind of untapped territory on a grand scale. We haven't seen too many of them.
Remaking cult classics.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's like, why touch a cult? The reason it's a cult classic is because it wasn't so popular
when it first
but it
came
still
out,
spoke to a wider array of audiences that through generations have now regarded it as something that's sacred, and yet you want to return to that and try to mimic it. It's like, no, that's the
Hocus
exact
pocus.
opposite.
Oh God.
Exactly.
This was better than
started on
Hocus.
that one.
This was better than Hocus Pocus.
I
too.
will
agree.
agree with you on that. It was better than Hocus Pocus.
I
Two.
no, it's just Hocus Pocus 2. And I agree. There's just things that I don't understand why you need to revisit it. It's best to move on. But you're right. The Hollywood isn't original anymore. They want to play it safe with the franchises. We mentioned Little Shop of Horrors last week and how that remake was canceled, thankfully. But again, that's another cult classic, and it's hard to, I think, remake something that is that has such a specific type of success.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, okay, Little Women has had so many reiterations, or A Star is Born.
Yep.
That's something that was hugely successful, that has had different versions throughout the ages, that you kind of expect a new generational version of that to come along. And for the most part,
It's part of the ingredient.
and most of those have been fairly successful with a few duds here or there. But it's like, that is something I completely understand why those films are revisited every so many years.
They're literally remaking those to make one for that generation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense. To return to something like this, where you're intentionally trying to get I think this might have been, probably in their eyes, a bigger cash grab if it had originally, when the idea was conceived. Because again, it's like, why not return to something that is a classic? I kind of disagree with you all a little bit. And to kind of return to what Neil was asking in the question of, could they have made a sequel to this? When I first saw the trailer, I was immediately turned off. The teaser, I was turned off. The actual trailer dropped, I saw it, and I was like, it could be good. The potential is there. But it needed more finessing. It needed more love and attention to the original work and what made the original work so... Again, this is why even Top Gun Maverick turned out so well. Part of what it was it touched on the things that were good about the 80s classic, but it also excuse me, the beer's getting to me. It also turned away from all of the 80s tropes that you saw in the original, and it was like, no, we're going to tell our own story, and we're going to obviously update the storytelling mechanics to the generation it's a part of now, as opposed to just going completely full 80s blown nostalgia. So yeah, you get the traditional 80s opening of Top Gun, but immediately you're thrust into an action scene that you would put on par with movies made today. And I think that this is kind of where this one fell short. I thought it was a good idea to do, okay, we know it takes place in the 40s. Okay, we're going to update it to him as an adult in the 70s. Again, I think a period piece would have been good, but it's not enough. It's not enough to generate a reason to tell the story that they did tell. And obviously, by our rating and our discussion here, it didn't warrant the remake that was made.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but it's one of those that's like, no, you should have just left it alone, not made this version, unfortunately. I still did text my family and say, hey, it's decent.
It's a safe movie.
It's a safe movie.
Safe movie to watch.
I could see some people who are either not fond of the original or they don't consider it as much of a classic because maybe they didn't grow up on it. I could see them maybe watching this, and I think we talked about it too before you recorded. It's kind of interesting that this came out right before Thanksgiving, before we get like a flood of Christmas movies.
They knew. It's like, let's not put it right in the midst of all the Christmas stuff that's going to come out. It's not going to hold up.
It's not an Elf. It's not Elf. It's not A Christmas Story.
Let's
not
drop
National
it.
Lampoons. Like, there's no way it fits in that echelon. So let's get it out there. Let's get people, kind of starting the Christmas season. But it's not something that is going to like jumpstart you to being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm excited.
It was it was a fine movie to be like, okay, this is a nice little taste of Christmas before Christmas comes. It's okay, but
are we ready to move on to headlines?
I think we should. I think we
we're
should.
ready. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Neil can hopefully. I'm sorry, you could join in on this discussion a little bit more.
I asked a question.
Hey, you
I
did.
participated.
Good job.
Let's roll that open.
Turned it off, so you
Yeah,
can do it.
like, I can't push no buttons. There's
Oh,
nothing
is it?
on there.
Oh, I didn't download.
off.
I told you.
Oh, you had to reset.
yeah.
I've not explained all my Apple
You gotta go
frustrations.
through the whole thing. Yeah. Well, now maybe we can get some good ones on there.
Trust me, I could.
We need it's working. It's working. Some of them needed to stay. The bigger boat one's good. That one comes in handy sometimes.
And I like the. Oh gosh,
You can't.
Are you not
handle-
entertained?
Oh, that one's
Yeah,
good. Yeah. That one's good.
Some of them are too long.
Yeah.
They are the I'm mad as hell. and I'm not
mad as hell, and I'm not gonna
But
take this
Keith
anymore.
loves to push that one.
I do love that one. You're gonna have to substitute with something else that conveys anger.
It's working.
It just doesn't have to be that long. It's working. Doesn't convey.
You could
anger.
split it up.
You should put "I hate sand" on there.
I hate sand.
The whole thing.
It's
You
everywhere.
think that's too long? Put the whole thing on there. I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. It'd be like 2 minutes of just listening to Hayden Christensen.
You were the chosen one.
Just all Star Wars.
It was said you would save democracy, not destroy it.
That's not the line.
I know, but I just love that.
Sounds like something from today.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think is so funny. Is like, this is how democracy dies.
With thunderous applause. It's like the only good line in the whole series.
It really
it's delivered
is.
terribly, but it is
Yeah.
a good. It's a well-written line. It's just not.
Gosh.
Yeah. Anyways, our headlines.
I know. Let's talk about it. Well, part of that
Yeah,
Star
part of it,
Wars
Star Wars,
coincides.
Yeah.
It's owned by Disney now.
The big news on the block, the breaking news on Sunday night. Bob Chapek is out and
Bobby's out
Iger
and Bobby's in.
It's Bobby's world, baby. Let's talk about it.
We're just flip flopping through Bob's here at Disney.
This is some big news that broke.
I mean,
I was shocked.
no, I'm definitely.
yeah, I
We
was
just
shocked.
shared it, and I thought it was a
joke.
I thought it was a Babylon Bee article.
Yeah.
Originally, and then I actually read it, and I was like, "What? This is for real?"
And for it to happen on a Sunday overnight, it was like, holy
Well,
crap.
it's fun because we did report not that long ago that they hadn't offered a contract to Chapek, and then I think they actually did a little bit after
Yeah, they
our
did.
show. And then I guess they decided, you know what? Never mind. We're done with you.
Well, wasn't there a guy that was kind of being eyeballed as a possible, and
That was
Chapek got rid of him?
speculation. The guy he fired, some people thought could have been next in line, and then he fired that guy. So yeah, that people did think that.
He didn't count on them bringing somebody out of retirement.
But I
yeah.
do think when that decision was made, though, Chapek received his
It was right
his
after he fired him that
extension-
he got his extension
So
on his
I'm like,
contract.
so they already knew. It
Yeah.
wasn't like it was blind that they were like, oh, they
He's
could have
getting
got rid of him before they did the extension.
I do have mixed feelings about Bibe Iger.
Biber.
Mixed feelings about Bob Iger coming back. I've never had a problem with Bob Iger because I do respect him as a businessman. He did turn Disney around after Michael Eisner. He did make a lot of amazing, like smart acquisitions as far as Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel,
20th Century Fox.
20th Century Fox. Yeah, I mean he oversaw Disney Plus's launch. And I know that's a lot of the things that they've been angry with Bob Chapek about. He had this narrow-minded focus on Disney Plus that they felt like there were resources going to it that necessarily didn't need to go to it. The parks have been down. Stock's been down for over a year. In total, I know they've had some periods where it's been up, but when you look...
Just because you have increases when you're down doesn't mean you're
year
positive.
over year they've been down, and that's the big one. It don't matter you went up for 1 week. Year over year they've been down. So I do think Bob Iger is the right man to correct the course, like financially and maybe with quality, because I do think we had some better quality products under him. I think he's good at putting the right people in places. I know there's still concerns about the content that Disney will produce, and I do think they kind of, on the downside, from the article that you shared, which is Hollywood Reporter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
They mentioned well, they mentioned a lot in there about him coming back reassures stockholders, and then ushering in there. They mentioned specifically ushering in the new secular phase of Disney, which you never know what they mean with that. So it's one of those things where I feel like this was a move to calm stockholders, because we know Bob Iger, we know what he's about. So now the stocks will settle a little bit because people will be less scared under him. But I do think he's also...
Some analysts are saying outperform.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that's not hard to do considering the rut it's been in.
I do think he is kind of, though, I don't know if he's coming in with the same mindset that he had before, or if he's coming in to basically just to be that person to placate them long enough to find another CEO, to be like, I'm just here to settle all the uneasiness.
He's agreed to 2 years to sign on. He's 70 years old, which I'll say, he looks good for his age.
Yeah.
But I was surprised when I found out he's 70. I'm like, no wonder the dude stepped down. He's ready to call it quits and maybe go live on his yacht for a few years before he croaks. But it's funny because I'm like, this is, yes, it's a return to normalcy. It's them bringing him back in at the 9th hour or the 11th hour to try to, stability. And they're trying to say, because this is going to return to business as normal. I get that. I think it's a safe bet. But at the same time, I'm like, for one, how much change if you can write the course in the next 2 years to try to get it back to where...
Well, if Chapek can wreck it in 1 year, maybe Iger can fix it in 2.
True. That's probably what they're going on. But it's funny because even we brought up the fact that, Iger was never a fan of Chapek back when they were even considering him to take over. But the board went against him, and he thought that he would usher him into the role of CEO. And, of course, Chapek kind of, the sleight of hand, was like, nah, it's okay. I got it. I'll take it from here. And, look... Nobody's saying that Iger's not savvy, that he's not good. He doesn't have good rapport with the employees of Disney and with the stockholders, or the shareholders. But at the same time, we also are undermining the fact that the changes that Chapek brought forth didn't happen overnight. Yes, he concentrated and focused on streaming being the new initiative to take Disney into this new future of streaming, wonder and splendor. And that failed abysmally over the last year, which is why he was ousted. Yet at the same time, I still think that a lot of the mindsets behind some of the secular, more, social viewpoints of Disney, that's not happened overnight. That's happened over the last decade.
Yeah.
With all these major acquisitions has also come ways to appease and not rock the boat, but also headed in a direction that seems to be much more... I don't even want to say apathetic, but very deliberately promoting certain kind of secular attitudes. We, look, everybody will get mad and absolutely throw blame on Chapek for how he handled the terrible decision that, against Florida and why Florida had backlash. And of course the polls, and if you look at this very most recent election of DeSantis winning extraordinary 20-point victory, and it's like, that's a complete slap in the face to anybody who stood up against DeSantis and Florida in general. And I hate to say it, but Disney Square is knocked square in the face because of that, what they tried to do in standing up to him. And it's like, no. you basically just got shut out and shut down in terms of that. However, while Chapek may have been more bold-faced about it and more unabashedly on that side of things, yeah, you may have ousted that, but if Iger continues to go that direction in a much more subtle way, it's not necessarily that I think it's going to do Disney more damage, but I don't think it's going to do Disney any better in the long run. They're still going to be tainted with that bad taste in your mouth of the woke culture they've already cultivated. And while Chapek was doubling down on it and they're wanting to get rid of that image and try to usher in some people that are still happy about Disney's, overall family-friendly image, you still got to promote that from within. You still got to promote. Now, granted, there's still some things that Iger is promoting that I'm happy to see. He's kind of like they're reinvigorated by this idea that he'll return to, creatives get a little bit more of a final say on which projects they do start, on where they're headed.
Right.
And I have hope there. But depending on the people who are in play, we still know there's the underlying culture that has been, again, celebrated at Disney to try to fit in certain social views into every piece of their content. And if Iger doesn't nix that, it's still going to be a bad day overall for Disney in the long run.
And allowing the idea of allowing creatives more control, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but that also does allow for, depending on what those creatives want in their projects, you still open the door for that stuff being in there. I do think Iger could usher in a return to quality, just because he does have that of knowing, okay, this person has talent, put them in charge. Oh, this person is not working out, get rid of them. It's something Marvel used to be really good about until recently too, and maybe that was trickled down from Iger, and with him gone, who knows. One thing I do really like,
I squarely blame that on Kevin Feige. I do.
I agree, but I mean, maybe if you have someone reining Kevin Feige in, it doesn't happen as much. But again, will Iger do that? We don't know. As far as Disney Plus, though, one thing I do like reading about, and I don't know what it will change, is the idea of quality over quantity. They're talking about they were just producing content just to have content on Disney Plus.
Yep.
And with Iger's return, they're talking about, well, let's not just blow resources just to make 20 series a month that we don't need that are all garbage. Let's focus on actually paying for things that are good.
Well, they know people aren't tuning in.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if people are finally saying, well, Andor's decent. Nobody's watching it.
Yeah.
Nobody's tuned into it.
Yeah.
So by that consideration alone, it's a flop.
You do have that burnout, whether it's good or not. That once you lose, because again, we've talked about this before, it's harder to get people to come back than it is to keep people. Once you lose them, they lose their trust, it's harder for them to return. So yeah, you can drop something like Andor and everybody can praise it and say, oh, this is the best Star Wars series that's been made so far. Yeah, but you've already...
And you know what? I hate to say, but guess what? Under Iger's watch... John Lasseter's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, nobody stuck up for him.
Nope.
And it's like you have people who were ousted particularly because of a political undertow that took them out, even though if you had somebody like Iger in that position who stood up for them.
Well, the things that happened with Gina Carano wasn't under Chapek's watch either. So
exactly.
It's like, no, Iger's not completely innocent by any means.
Talk about somebody who just, I think, wants to go along to get along. And yeah, he's good at, schmoozing with the right people in the press and keeping shareholders happy. But if it doesn't change the ultimate underlying culture into a different direction, it's still not going to be family-oriented Disney.
Well, that's kind of my question. Like, I read through the article a couple of times, and like the first analyst they interviewed just starts with "the magic is back" or "magic is back," something like that.
Yeah.
Like you're a marketing person, you're not an analyst. Like you need a little more skepticism.
Like, please buy Disney stocks.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of like positive vibes flowing, and that's great. But I think that getting this guy, like I've heard what you all said. I haven't been like following this super closely, but I think bringing in someone that's committed to 2 years. That's not stability. That's the opposite. And just because he did some things that were great and investors like him doesn't mean that that's going to pan out. It's a very different world right now than when he left. So I'm a little skeptical just with this specific article about that. And to Keith's point, it sounds like they're talking about like, Disney is getting too broad. It's like a general entertainment platform versus leaning into their brand. Their IP, right, leaning into their brand. And so like I mean, if he can cultivate that, there are just going to be implications for, like they mentioned Hulu in this article, and just like different investments that they've made. And I think the 2 years thing kind of is a little weird to me, but there are definitely going to have to be a lot of changes to come to drive anything.
Yeah, I really feel the 2 years thing is solely just it really is I think a move to try to calm stockholders. It's
like
look,
ease the transition.
Yeah, it's like Iger has been one of the most popular CEOs from Disney since Disney himself and his brother, who were in charge of the company. So it's like you get the guy who is most popular that's still living. I totally understand that, but really it just feels to me like this move of, see, look, he's coming back. He's going to help us settle
Everything's
things.
fine.
It's like, no, he's not going to stay, but that's okay because this time we'll have a smoother transition to whoever's next instead of the one between him and Chapek.
And I think honestly, other than just kind of, calming the waters, that's going to be the first thing on my mind. Is, okay, in 6 months, are we going to have an idea of who's next in line? Because I would like to see a slow build-up to the time that he is exiting to who's going to come, who's going to be at the helm next.
Because when Chapek took over, there was an issue with Bob Iger was offered to, like, kind of shepherd him in.
He was supposed to, and Chapek...
Yeah, and Chapek cut it short.
Yeah, he said, no, I don't
And
need
I feel
you.
like that's the opposite of what Iger's doing. I'm reading a different article from Entertainment Weekly, and it says that according to internal emails, Iger's set to his goal is to set the strategic direction for renewed growth and determine a new CEO successor quickly. So even Iger himself is saying I'm just transitional, and we're gonna try to move this forward. But I feel like Iger, if he offered that to Chapek, then there's no doubt that whoever they choose to be the successor, he's going to be there to kind of shepherd them in, unless they're like Chapek. But at this point, I don't think Disney will let.
I think whoever's next, they're going to be like, he's going to help you whether you want it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think they're going to listen to him.
Yeah.
The board didn't heed his warning when he was against Chapek.
Yeah.
He said he's not the right man for the job, and they went against him, and he
Yeah.
was voted down. So, look, there's nothing to be said bad in terms of the business sense that Iger had. Like we said, all the acquisitions he's made, the flourishing that Disney has had over the last 2 decades, honestly, since Iger's, been at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still been what happens to Disney in a post-Iger world.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, without knowing, obviously, the internals, and I don't work for Disney or anything, but part of being a good leader is handing the reins over to someone else who can take it and continue to flourish. And I'm not saying that, easily Iger can use the excuse or the devil's in the details, and he can say, well, I never did support Chapek, so that's not on me. Okay, fine. Fair enough. But whoever this next person is, I think it's even more, the weight is more on his shoulders now to pick somebody who is going to take over and, carry on Disney to the next generation. But I don't have good faith that in the next 2 years, that's going to be somebody who will absolutely carry on the traditions that we saw even pre-Iger and during Iger. Because I feel like Iger's a businessman. And granted, when you're in charge of the amount of properties and IPs and just the different, Disney is such a huge company and so influential culturally. Mm-hmm. It's like that's where I'm hanging my hat on is I'm anticipating what's coming next, and I'm weary. And as long as I maintain that kind of caution, then I think I'll be okay. But it's going to take a lot for Disney to kind of win me back over into tuning into everything they produce or come out with. Because, during the last couple years, and you can blame some of it on COVID and all that crap, but throughout the last 2 years, Disney has not given me any inclination that they are the company that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
That they still have the same values that I want instilled in whatever it is they produce. And until they return that to form, I just don't think you're going to win a lot of those people over who have already turned a blind eye and said, no. You're going to have to do a lot to bring me back into the fold. And if you kind of do business as usual, or, we're going to do those same things, but we're just going to tampen it down a little bit and just not, beef it up in terms of promoting it, then again, that doesn't really change the culture at hand.
Yeah, and with him only having a 2-year contract, you do have to ask how much is he trying to rock the boat?
How much can you change in 2 years?
He might.
Right.
This really might just be him saying, "Look, I know you're not happy with Chapek. I will come back and stand in just enough time to transition to the next person."
Well.
And with that be, if that's his mindset, then it's like, is he looking to make much changes, or is he just saying, "I'm just basically a substitute that's trying to find the next person"?
It's only been 2 months, and Elon Musk has completely changed Twitter.
Yeah.
So
that's
I'm
true.
saying, if you have someone
You have to have someone who wants to, though.
that is not willing to take crap.
And I don't think that's Iger. I mean, I think he's a great businessman, and I
And
think
that's not Disney.
yeah.
no,
Disney's not the same kind of platform.
Disney's a culture. Like
Yes.
it's deeply, and I think back to what I said about Elon Musk, like him or not, like Twitter had its own culture internally. But I think that's like an internal business culture like Geek Squad used to have, or may still have. I don't know. When I used to work there, it was a culture. They told you when you were hired, like, you need to become a part of this culture. Yeah. But Disney it deeply affects the culture. I mean, it's raising our kids, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it definitely
it's sad
deeply
that
affects it, and it's different.
It used to be that you could turn on a Disney movie, whatever they put out, and you didn't have to worry about whether you put your kids in front of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that is just not true today. Whether Iger wants to admit that or not, or even Disney as a whole, I mean, they're knocking themselves in the tooth if they don't take this opportunity to address that and course correct. And if they don't, then you're not, again, like I said, the people you have lost and the money that you have bled is going to continue to bleed. It may slow to a trickle, but you're not bringing those people back into the fold unless they get an idea from you in a grand promotional effort out in the masses that says, no, we were wrong. We're doing a course correct. And if you're not going to do that blanketly, then I don't see any change coming.
So you're saying that the magic isn't necessarily back?
No, I'm not.
All right.
I think he's saying the magic has died.
The magic died.
They're gonna have
due
to create some.
Not
new
quite.
magic.
It's just.
I don't normally
It's a
quote
glimmer.
people that
Glimmer.
comment on some of these articles that we did, but I think this one kind of hits the nail on the head. So I'm gonna read it real quick.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
sure. Go ahead.
Please.
So this
do.
guy, this is the first comment on this Entertainment Weekly article, which I'm surprised that someone commented this on Entertainment Weekly. But he says, Iger was fantastic, but the thing is, he was in charge during a different time in America. It's a whole new corporate world now. If he can come in and restore sanity, then yay. However, if he gets backed into a corner by the same activist bullies that hobbled Chapek, the situation won't improve at all. In general, American corporations need to stop trying to placate the woke finger waggers and just focus on running their damn companies.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
In layman's terms, I would agree.
Yeah.
And it's sad because it's like a lot of that perspective comes from, again, that's coming from the perspective that Iger was kind of ousted, or not ousted, but forced into going along with this culture against his will. And I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think the upper echelons, the board, the people like Iger kind of are okay with that kind of mindset and that thinking. They want to pursue that, or they wanted to. They implemented certain seeds that grew throughout Iger's tenure that became what Chapek ended up leading, and he just doubled down on it. But again, that doesn't go away overnight. Those seeds are there. Yeah. Those have festered, and you're going to have to cut it. You're going to have to separate the wheat from the chaff. And it's going to take time, but it's like, does Iger do that, or does he set up the reins for the next person to come in and do that after he's gone and kind of leave his name unblemished? And that's where time will tell. We'll see.
I always separate the wheat from my chaff.
You do?
The wheat from the Chapek.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Where are we moving to now?
Let's move on.
Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah, that's it. Chris Hemsworth.
Stupid
Alzheimer's
story.
risk. Wow, we really brought it down.
Stupid story.
Hey, it scared the crap out of him, man.
Yeah.
He might get Alzheimer's one day.
Great. Good for him. I mean,
He's gonna take some time
No,
off.
He doesn't have it. He's 8 to 10 times more
He wants to
likely
spend
to get
time
it.
with his family before he gets it.
Right. But he doesn't need to tell everyone, like, oh, I might get Alzheimer's one day. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might too.
It's a tragic.
I don't
But
care.
you're not
Chris Hemsworth.
You're not 8 times more likely to
I don't
get
care.
it.
He's gonna
You
get
don't
the
know that.
best effing
He's not
care.
been tested.
He's gonna get the best care in the world
Oh,
if
yeah,
he does get
that's
it.
true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be stuck in a nursing home and see ya. Like,
Yeah.
all right, move
I will-
on.
I will-
Megan will be sitting there like he doesn't
I
remember
will come
who he
feed
is.
you applesauce.
Yeah.
That's
if
great.
you get stuck in a nursing
Vibes.
home.
This is a J-Law moment. I kind of feel like
I
it's-
disagree.
I just think it's funny coming from him because he's not the kind of person that has ever. I guess he's never really raised any flags for me that he would be this kind of person that's like, oh
He
well,
says
I need
that
to take a
though.
break.
He says that in the article. And the BBC reported, and I just want to bring it up because he even says, he's like, my concern was I just didn't want to manipulate it and over dramatize it and make it into some sort of honky grab at empathy
Yeah.
or whatever entertainment. And here's the thing, he's an A-lister. Any kind of news like this is going to cause attention.
I
And
don't think
people
it's
are
so
gonna
much
stir.
him as the media's going to run
Yeah.
with it because
Well,
they're like,
yeah.
it's Chris Hemsworth. He might have Alzheimer's in 20 years. We don't know. Let's tell
Basically,
everybody.
so
You're
here's the
taking a
thing.
break to spend more time with your family.
He could have done that. He could have
could've.
easily done that. But he even brings up, he's like, oh, I wanted to spread awareness for people who may struggle with this. Look,
Yeah, because we don't know Alzheimer's exists.
Yeah, I'll give him that. I'm
I'm giving the poor man credit
No,
because
I'm not as
that's
hard on
totally
him.
fair.
Yeah.
I agree that yes, easily this is something that people could harp on, and I do think the bigger man would have said, I just want to spend time with my family. I'm taking time away from acting. Because how many? I mean, look at Chadwick Boseman. He freaking died, and nobody knew what he was struggling.
Oh yeah,
with.
they didn't even know he had cancer.
And it wasn't until he passed away that we're like, oh crap, this
Yeah.
dude was struggling with this for a long time.
he was a real G.
He was a man.
So I'm just saying
He
that
struggled with it and kept on going.
I do agree with that. It far too if you know that you are an A-lister and you have this responsibility of like, look, great on you. I'm glad you're raising awareness or you're taking time to spend with your family, but you could have just come out and said that.
Yeah, I will say that's why I said it's a stupid story.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily knock him.
No, yeah, that's how
he
I
shouldn't have
feel.
said it, but like, or he shouldn't have like shared it.
Right.
I'm not saying that he knew it was gonna go really broad
Viral.
and everything else.
I don't
but,
think
like,
it's not a big deal. Like I understand the idea of getting Alzheimer's terrifying, but I do think the articles, like all the media outlets I've seen, have really overblown it. As like when I first
Well,
saw
like
it.
they all do.
Well, when I first saw it, I honestly
Hemsworth has Alzheimer's.
the first
Right,
yes,
yeah.
the first
I'm surprised
headline
I haven't seen that
the
yet.
first headline I saw, I legitimately thought he was taking a break because he was diagnosed
Agreed.
with Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when I clicked on the link and it said he had this test that he was predisposed, I was like, oh, I mean that is scary, but that's a lot less serious than I thought it was.
It's different than
What
he
else we got?
has Alzheimer's. Yeah.
What else we got? Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are going to make their own production together. Because Affleck I think they both have individual studios. I know Affleck has his own production company.
If they do, I don't know what it's
I didn't
called.
know
This,
Matt
this one I
Damon
think
did.
is funny.
Matt
I
Damon may
just know
not.
Matt Damon gives water
Yeah.
to Africa. That's all I know.
Well, now they're going to make their own production company, and that's somehow
It's
important.
like I think it's called like artist equity or something.
Oh Lord!
I will say the premise didn't sound terrible. AE, but it's like artist equity is what it stands for.
No, I mean what they have to say. I'm like, I don't know.
Here's
It
the
just-
thing: when you throw around the term equity these days,
Yes.
that carries weight. And if they're doing what they say their intentions are, which is a return to the classic Hollywood indie film days, which is they want more of a cash stake in the profits
Yeah, they're going
of
to
a
share
film.
profits with the people involved rather than.
So
right,
look,
yeah.
and he basically they're saying this is a joint venture. They've already got $100 million to back it. That they're hoping they can kind of cultivate this culture of cinematographers, actors, new upcoming directors, people who can come to the table with
it
an
all
idea
sounds nice.
that they can then fund.
I heard they got like $100 million from FTX.
It's like, yeah, that investment is going great.
Here's the thing, and maybe this is me being a skeptic with Hollywood so much anymore. It all sounds nice, but it also sounds like it has a line of something that could be pretentious. Because I mean, Matt Damon, I just feel like,
It's
one
Matt
of those-
Damon and Ben Affleck.
So I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, how much of it is it actually going to be them following through, and how much of it is just them just blowing smoke up everybody's butts to make it sound like they're doing something great for all these hardworking people that work on
Who
films?
knows? Maybe they're just admitting they don't make money anymore. And
I
they
think
need
that's
a new
what
cash
it is.
flow.
All I know is I read this and I'm like, thank you. I'm very thankful they're making their own production company now because I want to watch every movie and rate it on the Matt Damon water scale.
That's
I
it.
just want to know.
This is going to usher in our official Matt Damon.
Are
water
any of
scale.
these movies actually going to be
forcing us to actually do that.
to finally?
That's why I'm
commit
thankful
to it.
because are any of these movies actually going to be good, or are they just going to be movies that we could have used the money to actually save people in Africa with? Who
That's
knows?
true.
with clean fresh water.
Well, and here's the thing: if they are good, we know that they're going to get the biggest cut of it.
Yeah.
We know that it's going to funnel back. Well, 'cause
I would hope so.
Well, that's what they want. That's the reason they're setting it up, and they're saying this is kind of the old traditional Hollywood indie flick model. It was fun films that you could either flop or could succeed, and if they succeed, you benefit greatly.
bank, yeah.
And here's the thing: that's cool. I think it's a return to form, and they said it kind of cuts down on the noise that you're getting from streaming nowadays, where streamers are just going out there and buying up all these properties, but you're still getting a ton of indie flicks that are overlooked or not being made because they don't fit to a wider array of audience that they know is going to be a hit.
I think what happened was Affleck peaked with Argo. Then he did. then he decided to play Batman. He went through a divorce, and he realizes that his career is completely gone down the pooper. And now he's like, let's. Hey Damon, I need help. Let's
What's
make
the
a production
movie about
company.
where he's the basketball coach?
I was thinking the exact.
What was the name of the film though?
That was
forget it.
Yeah,
Coming Back, or what was it
The
called?
Way Back.
The Way Back.
The Way Back.
Yeah.
This is his way back.
This is the way back.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
last
he's been
thing-
a
the
drunk
last
and
thing,
a drunkard too long. Yeah.
He did that other one with Anne Hathaway. The last thing he ever wanted, or last thing she ever
Was
wanted.
he in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was
terrible.
He was the one
CIA
that
agent or something.
The
or what
title
he?
was about it because it was the last thing he ever wanted was
Oh,
for that to
gosh.
happen to her. or
That movie
whatever.
was
That was
god
terrible.
awful. That movie was terrible.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on to our next one, which real quick, we just want to mention it because it's another possible
This
studio.
one,
Talk
yeah.
about success story, though. Blumhouse and Atomic Monster
Yeah.
merging.
Yeah.
Blumhouse obviously being touted for the fact that they do produce very low budget films but make huge
Well, and then Atomic
profits in the
Monsters,
box
James
office.
Wan, and he's
Horror
been
films.
touted as
Yeah.
he's been touted as like this next great horror icon. So yeah, to see their companies merging is different.
It's interesting.
I'm interested. Yeah, I'm like, okay,
Again, is this blow? Again, I always, it's like anybody who you're a fan of, and you rally behind them because they're in this kind of
I'm more of a fan of
early
Jason
stage
Blum
of,
than I am James Wan. I used to, but
Same.
James Wan is kind of he's kind of going off the
well, and we've
creative. deep
Conjuring
end.
3. We've even though he produced it, didn't direct it, but it's like we've seen what
Okay,
he's
well,
able to.
he made Malignant. He directed
Yeah,
that.
that was bad.
So
That
yeah.
wasn't that good. And you're seeing like I'm all about jumping in on the bandwagon when you see people who are creating things that are tenacious and they want to get out there and do something new, and you see them coming from an angle of being hungry, but then they get the success and it's kind of like, okay, everybody wants to evolve to that next natural level of becoming bigger.
Yeah, but
are
will it
they
be
ready
good?
and
Yeah.
will it be good, or are they just going to create more of the same or bigger
Blumhouse makes
budget?
some amazing movies now, but if they get bigger and then you add in JamesWan, who I think is hit or miss, like he can make great stuff.
Well,
but
we've
it's-
seen what he's done
yeah.
with the Fast
So
franchise
it's-
and how ridiculous it's gotten.
It's he's only
I thought he did Fast 5, and he also did another one, didn't he?
he only did one movie, I think, because what's his name returned. Justin Lin returned and is done the last
Justin
one.
Lin is
Never
who-
mind.
yeah.
I get all the Asians mixed up. They all look
Wands,
the same.
Lens.
I could
yeah.
say that I have eyes. Look at my almond eyes. See?
James Wan did he did Aquaman.
What's Weird Al say, or what he's like? I got more chins than China.
Chinese phone book.
Yeah.
That's the
No,
old
he
joke.
says in the song "Fat" or whatever. He
Oh,
says I
yeah.
got more chins than China or something like that.
The seventh one, the one they should have ended on, the last one that
That
Paul
was
Walker
James Wan?
That was James Wan. I think they should have ended, and even that one wasn't great, but it wasn't
Neil,
bad.
you actually. Well, did you bring that up on the show?
What was
or
the
was
last
that
movie
before?
Juan did though?
before.
We just
You didn't watch
recently saw.
Malignant
I
was
thought
the
we
last
just
one he
recently
did.
saw a movie
I
that he
don't
did.
believe so. I think
I've
Malignant
not
was
seen
it.
*Malignant*, so I don't.
We
know.
reviewed it.
Yeah, we reviewed it.
I've not seen it.
Really?
Yeah, you watched it.
We talked about
Yeah,
on HBO Max when she had her twin on the back of her head or whatever. Yeah, it was terrible. It was a terrible movie. It was terrible.
I remember it now.
That's all you had to say, but you had the twin on the back of her
Yeah,
head.
it was terrible. It was a terrible movie. It's like, yeah, he's like, oh crap, I have seen that. It was awful.
I didn't even know that's the name of it.
The one he's
sorry.
the newest one he's working on now is the second Aquaman because he did do the
Okay,
first.
he's doing
He has good movies, but he also
I
has
just
bad
saw his
movies.
name recently. Me and Sawyer watched Aquaman.
Oh,
That's where I
he's
saw his
produced a
name.
lot of things.
All right,
too.
I got to bring the mood down.
I know.
I got to bring it down for
This
our
one hit me
last
hard.
headline. It's just from being a childhood, fan. I couldn't. We normally don't mention, but
We've mentioned a
A-listers.
lot of.
We have.
yeah.
And
And he's
this
well
is
known,
one-
even if he's not an A-lister.
And
He is
he
well known.
has a cult following. But Jason David Frank, who played the Green Ranger, the White Ranger,
then the red,
and,
then the black.
He was all over the Power Rangers fame.
He's been the one actor. I mean, a lot of them have come back and made cameos, but he's been the one actor that consistently comes back for anniversary events and different things. And he's always seemed like a down-to-earth, extremely happy, pleasant guy. And that's, I think, why it hits hardest. Just like with Robin Williams. Granted, that one's much bigger, but when it's always the people that you don't expect because they always seem happy, like he did, you never expect to see death by suicide because you think, oh wow, that guy.
And it's alleged.
We don't know
specifically, but that's the reports that came out on, I think it was last night, Monday evening, or was it Sunday evening, that he had committed suicide. I mean, when I saw died at 49, I was like, that's young. He had to have had some kind of
accident or something.
Right. Yeah. And then when I saw the headline from TMZ, I was like, oh man.
Well, the internet never misses a beat because I don't know if you knew
don't
this.
share a meme. I'm not ready.
No. Well, they're not.
They actually, always have memes like.
But they are not. This one's not bad. They're just corny because I don't know if you know this, but the original Yellow Ranger, she died young. I don't remember how she had passed. Yes.
Man.
She died years ago. I think 2001. So now there's all
9/11. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
sorry.
But now there's all these memes of him like with her in heaven, and I'm just like, you guys are so. I'm like, and they're like these sentiment, and I'm just like, God, people are so like.
I'm just picturing like
someone was gonna make it. So,
it's meant to be touching, obviously, but I see it and I'm like, this is so corny. Yeah,
it's like they have them up there in the clouds, and then Zordon's behind them. Oh. No, honestly, I also think too, he not only had a cult following, like you said, he was one of those that was never ashamed of being part of Power Rangers. He understood the success that it had and why it was such a big franchise, and he never seemed to diminish the fame that it did bring him, even though it wasn't like, he was typecast in that role. It wasn't like he was ashamed of that. And I think that is why he had the following he did. Yeah. He embraced the fact that he was a Power Ranger, whereas a lot of people are like, I don't want to be associated with that kid's show.
Some people are like, I'm better than this, and then they never went on to do anything else because they weren't better than that. And I think he knew that was his career. Fans loved him.
He had humility.
And he was happy to do it, yeah.
And we all know he was into mixed martial arts. He knew tons of different crafts and styles. He actually, I read in the article that he professionally was in mixed martial artist competitions and fighting from like 2008 to 2010. Anytime you did see a video of him, he was always repping that. And it seemed like, he's survived by his 4 children. So it's like, it's very sad to see someone go down that path and maybe have this front publicly, but behind the scenes they're suffering from depression or whatever it may be. And look, I don't know his life story. I don't know what could have been going on in his life personally, but obviously it's just very sad to hear someone with such a an energy about themselves and someone who seemed to embrace what life had given them.
36 minutes ago, there's an article released about the fact that he was going through a divorce just recently, and apparently he hung himself.
Damn. So just I mean, it's an awful story, awful news to hear. Obviously, nothing but prayers for his family and of course those 4 kids that are just going to be growing up without a father. It's just tragic all the way around. Definitely not fight like hell, but gosh sakes, you shouldn't end your life that way. There's other alternatives and there's ways out, regardless of what atrocities and tragedies life may throw at you. There's always a way to fight through. Just know that. Power through.
Power through. Really?
Wasn't trying to make a joke out of it. Oh gosh.
He's up in heaven with Thuy Trang now. That's her name. That's her name. That's the actress's name. She died in a car crash. I was curious. That's what happened. So.
Okay, well, it wasn't a plane crash.
Who's got a segue?
She actually.
All right, let's go to our multimedia. Here.
Multimedia. Haven't you heard?
Multimedia. I was just going to say, if you must know, she never got to see 9/11. She died September 3rd.
Oh, wow.
They took her out before. They knew. It's like the Yellow Ranger's going to stop us.
Are born.
Like, I wouldn't even have thought of that.
If she would have died in that car wreck, she would have stopped it.
She didn't get to see 9/11.
Yeah, she never experienced it.
Isn't that a weird...
Brandon brought it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a weird
neither
saying.
did my grandfather.
Yeah. Some people didn't live through it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Most people today are born after 9/11.
Yeah, they don't. They think
She died before it.
it's Pearl Harbor to them.
It's like,
Are born
anybody
long
born
after.
today is born after 9/11. Oh my god.
Simple math.
Simple, yeah. Someone's had too much beer. What's our unique weekly segment about?
It's like most people born today are born today.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I've had too little sleep and too much beer.
Yeah.
Klaus has rotted your mind.
She's here. She's a soul sucker, I'm telling you. All right, let's talk about it. What is it? Our headline. This is interesting. And I actually have not thought about this.
Our unique segment.
Our unique weekly segment, Multimedia. I wanted to think about Thanksgiving. Done with the death and decay. We're pushing that off.
No more death and decay.
What movie you were not sure about watching, but you're thankful, you're glad that you watched it?
I feel like there's been actually a couple of those recently. But here's the thing: I always hate because I can't ever pick out specifics. I was hoping someone else would mention first.
I specifically,
I didn't know that was the
as soon as he
springboard.
told me, I had one picked out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well,
Like no, hands down, the
Jupiter
Greatest Showman.
Ascending.
oh.
I went
Okay.
to see that movie and was thinking, Jesus, why am I going to see
Okay.
this movie? And 3 minutes into that movie, I was like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
I didn't really have, I think, any preconception. I didn't think it was going to be great, but
I thought it was going to be a terrible
Cheesy,
cheesy musical, and I did not want anything to do with that movie.
See, I'm a sucker
until
for
it
musicals
started.
sometimes, so
And
I'll
then
always
I
give
was
them a
just like,
chance.
Dang, this is... After the opening number, I was like,
Hooked.
okay,
Wow.
you got my attention.
See,
Like-
I didn't see it early enough because I heard everyone say this movie's amazing, and my expectations got the better of me.
Well, don't do that.
I really like the movie. I don't ever have to see it again. I'll just listen to the soundtrack and I'll be fine.
Sure, yeah.
Did you
I watch it.
like the movie though?
I liked it.
It was okay.
Yeah,
Just
I
not
wasn't
didn't
like
blow your socks
floored
off.
by it. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. But Sean, you were actually really
That's
pleasantly
one
surprised.
that I can recently think of that I literally sat down and was just like, I don't want to be here. I
Yeah.
don't want to see this movie, but I'm going to because this is what we're reviewing.
Yep.
It was like one of them ones that I was going to fight my way through, like
Yeah.
like Black Panther 2. And
that one did not turn out to be good.
no, that movie is still, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. If I had a top 10, it would be in the top 10.
Dang.
I will watch it anytime I get a chance to watch
Wow,
it.
that's impressive.
I love that movie.
Holy crap.
And I did not think, I thought I was going to hate it.
You got one?
Go ahead.
I mean, this one's not that prolific by any means, but actually, I didn't expect anything out of Smile, and that was better than I thought it would be. I mean, it still wasn't great, but that was.
I was gonna say,
I'm trying to think of movies that I'm
I'm trying to think overall. 'Cause
Yes.
It's easy to go back to recent, and the most recent one I could think of was Barbarian. I thought it was going to be hokey and cheesy, and it didn't turn out to be anything like I expected it to be, and I was very happy and pleasantly surprised by the end of that film.
X and then subsequently Pearl, I thought were better than I was expecting.
So
I
all
didn't.
horror movies.
Yeah, they were.
Well,
but both of those,
honestly,
I
Low
did-
bar.
That's easily
It's true. It's like you don't. There's been a lot of modern horror I just haven't expected much out of, and this
Yeah.
was a good year for horror. I feel like, other than Halloween Ends, that was terrible.
Did you say Jupiter Ascending earlier?
Yes.
Were you mocking me?
Yes.
Yeah. I hated that
Sorry.
movie when it came
I
out.
know.
I recently watched that like a year ago. It's probably been a year since I mentioned that. I recently watched it and was just like, this movie is not bad at all. I like this movie.
Avatar, my first movie. I just, I went in not expecting much, and I came out, and my
that's-
expectations were not
Well,
met.
Because
okay.
you saw the greatest
The
movie ever made.
the original John Wick, like I didn't think it was going to be terrible, but I
True.
didn't go in expecting much out of it, and I was like, oh wow, this was a really
That's a good one.
There's
Yeah.
like Hardcore Henry. I didn't think that was going to be amazing until we saw it, and I was like, oh dang, this was
fun.
awesome. Yeah.
Fast Five.
Upgrade, Fast Five. is a good
Upgrade
one.
was great.
Upgrade.
Fast Five was definitely one that I went
That was
expecting
when
it
that
to be.
franchise peaked.
Well, yeah, but it was also that was at a time where you're like, again, it's the fifth one in the franchise. You're like, oh gosh, this is
Yeah.
gonna be stupid, and it actually is kind of like.
Well,
it
they've
does a
circled
great
back
balance.
around to that.
Oh yeah, they definitely
was-
jumped the shark plenty of times.
I was
but-
gonna say Fast 9, so I'm thankful for it because I'm done with those now.
You're done. You don't even need to see the last two.
I don't.
So I like I
I'm going
said,
to, but
10
I don't
part
need
one
to.
and
well,
10
like I
part
said
two.
earlier, I pulled a Lost on it. I watched most of it, and then I stopped
Done.
because I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love those movies. I know some of them are really bad, but I always really, from the first movie, I freaking love those movies. And this one sucked. It's just not true to the spirit of those movies. It's taking itself way too seriously. There aren't really any cars in it.
No,
It's like,
no, they've
I was getting ready to say, you grew up in the Need for Speed, Gran Turismo
Yeah.
car era. That's where
Yep.
everything we did was about our cars. It was about putting money into your. Nobody does that anymore. People don't put thousands of dollars into thumping speakers and little rims and stuff on their cars anymore. They just don't. That was like that was a fad. And
well, they do, but now it's all like underground. It's like a cult kind of thing.
Yeah.
It
And
returned
this-
to before it was enthusiast. It's,
It's
now
become
just-
niche
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But the first few movies did it was about the cars.
Yep.
It was this story, but it was centered around what ride you had.
Like even
And
Tokyo Drift, that movie is
the cars are
the
badass.
guy is
Yeah.
weird, but
Yeah.
like still
He's
the
terrible
car,
actor,
like
but
all
yeah,
the
the
tuner
racing.
stuff is like really cool.
Yeah.
And this movie, I'm just like, I don't care about your stupid Challenger, whatever that is.
It's all
Like,
become
or-
like
or, oh, we're gonna
this
have
global
to-
espionage
Yes,
type film.
yeah.
It's not even about
It's
the
not
racing
the
or
cars.
the cars
It's
anymore.
about a damn
yeah.
satellite that they're trying to like destroy. I was like, what the hell is this?
They become spy action heroes, and I'm like, what the
Like
hell
Ludacris
happened
went
here?
from having the cool tech in a car to being like literally like
Oh, we're gonna
CIA
shoot ourselves into
operative.
we're gonna shoot ourselves
God.
into space. God's eye.
so stupid. Yeah. Final nail in the coffin for me. So
Wow.
You're done with that series.
That's the only
franchise is done.
It's the only positive of that
Let's
movie.
flip this thing around, since he just brought up one that he hated, and let's say a movie that you thought was going to be amazing and you hated it.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh wow,
That's more
So
recent.
He said that quick, yeah.
The recent Halloween trilogy. It's just they progressively got worse. Halloween was great, but then Kills and Ends was terrible,
Yeah.
and they just set it back to. I would put it up there with Resurrection and freaking H2O. It's just
Yeah.
like they're bad.
I was gonna say Gone with the Wind for me.
Oh, I like Gone with the
Really?
Wind.
When we did our first Academy Award winners,
Yeah.
like I had never seen that entire film, but I've heard everybody say this is the greatest film in cinematic history.
It's not the
I watched
greatest,
that
but it is
movie
good.
and was just like, this is
Oh,
mediocre
okay.
movie.
Going back to that, a lot of the early ones, freaking Cavalcade.
Okay,
There's so many. The Great
There's a lot of
Ziegfeld.
very
there
bad-
were so many
yeah.
early ones that were terrible.
I agree with that.
Cimarron
Well, and actually,
was one of them.
yeah, that was terrible.
That wasn't that great.
But and to reverse it again, to go back to one I wasn't expecting much out, but I liked. And I know you would disagree with Sean, but Wings.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
Wings.
I loved
yeah.
Wings when I
love
watched it, and I
Wings.
was like, "This is actually kind of incredible for its time."
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think about so many that my parents kind of wanted me to watch when I was younger, and I was like, "I don't want to watch this." From freaking Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, that's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite movies. Talk about putting it up in your. That's in my top 5.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I didn't want to watch that when I was younger because again, it's like, oh, my parents want to watch this movie. I don't want. But I loved it. There are just so many movies that like freaking Hoosiers, Rudy,
good one.
like
Oh,
movies
yeah.
that when I was younger, I was
Rudy's a
just
good
like,
one.
these don't turn.
it's like, God, Dad, you're gonna watch that again,
right? And then
It's like
I
our
watched
dads
it,
were the ones that watched it.
and I freaking loved them.
Yeah.
and they're classics. They're classics for a reason. Yeah. But yeah, any more that y'all return to that are just bad, and you're like, oh wow, I'm thankful I don't have to watch that again.
I've told y'all before, and I know you completely disagree with me, but I think It's a Wonderful Life is not a good movie.
Well, I love It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, I do
And that's
too.
one that like everybody loves that movie. I don't like it.
I love that
Yep.
movie.
Damn, Avatar. Obviously, I throw that in. There.
Me and Neil saw Avatar like 6 times. It was
I know.
ridiculous.
And
And
you
I
all
haven't seen it
contributed.
since.
No,
You are the reason.
Nobody
Hey,
has.
we drove 2 hours.
nobody
to see
has.
that.
if James Cameron said if the second one doesn't, at least become the 3rd or 4th highest grossing film of all time, it's done. They have to make that much
Good.
in order to make a profit.
Which is funny because it's
Good.
half hour longer.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to cut down on the
officially
showings.
3 hours,
hours.
and 12
Are you
minutes long.
serious?
It's 3
Yeah.
hours and 12 minutes long, a half hour longer than the original.
Well, 12 minutes. At least 11 or 12 will be the credits.
True,
Don't you
but
think?
still,
I mean,
the
credits
credits
are usually-
it's still going to be a half hour longer
just
because
saying,
the
it's 3
original
hours
has
long, yeah.
Well, the original had credits as well, so
Yeah.
it's still a half hour longer. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, apparently he cussed out the producers during the original filming because they thought 2 hours and 40 minutes was too long, and he told them to get the F out of his office. At the time to support the movie was now, and they couldn't come back later when it was a success and support it, is what he told them, he says. So now I guess they allowed him to have whatever runtime he wants because he was right the first time.
Is there an intermission?
No. Why? They don't do intermissions anymore, Neil.
There should be, so I can leave and get the hell out of there. Say, well, I wasted my... So I could pull a Fast 9 and say, well, I've learned my lesson. I'm done with Avatar.
If it makes you feel better, Zack Snyder was going to have an intermission for his cut of the Justice League.
Yeah.
You know, the 4-hour-long cut.
I took an intermission. I made my own up.
Well, okay, that's a movie right there. I thought I was going to absolutely hate it.
True, I didn't hate it.
And I didn't hate it.
I
It
didn't
was
like
definitely
it.
too long. It wasn't great.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought it was going to be abysmal.
It was better
and
than the
wasn't.
Justice League.
It was better than the original Justice League.
Yeah. And in fact, there's quite a few of the. I mean, most recently, a lot of the DC films. I'll be honest, Black Adam.
I didn't think it was going to be good.
Bad. Yeah,
I agree.
And it turned out to be okay.
Yeah.
Freaking Wonder Woman.
Okay. That's what I thought was going to be good.
You thought it was going to be good?
Yeah, that was
Wonder Woman
one.
84. Yeah, it flipped the script.
That was one after the first one, which I thought was good. I thought, the sequel, same people,
director,
and it was bad.
Yep, definitely. So many out there. We got so many.
I'm
on,
out
Neil.
there.
I wanted to have a thankful.
We need more from you.
More thankful.
What's something that you thought was going to be great and then you hated
Yeah.
it?
Or no. Or
I can tell you one right now.
Because he already told us that one.
The Last
he told us
Jedi.
Oh gosh.
I mean,
It's like, this is going to be great.
But no, Neil told us one that he hated,
Wow.
not knowing. Well, you didn't really go in with expectations for F9. But what about one?
no, I mean, that's the thing. I knew it definitely probably wasn't great by all accounts.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've heard you guys talk about it. It's like it wasn't. But that's the thing. My expectations, I thought that usually when I hear that it's a really bad movie, I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Because my expectations also work that way.
Yeah.
So, like Wonder Woman 84 or
You
whatever.
just learned
I
to
might
not have
watch that.
expectations.
I have great expectations.
Oh, so you haven't seen that?
I have not seen that.
It's wonderful. You'll love it.
See, that's that exactly. But y'all have crapped on that movie so much, I might as well watch it. And I'll be like, I'd give it a 2-star or whatever. I don't know, but like, yeah, I don't.
There's
He's
some
like,
movies
no.
that are so bad that I find it hard to believe that even with expectations that someone would be like, yeah, that was okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
There's
I don't know.
people with poop fetishes.
Yeah. Not everything.
some
No, I
people- some
completely,
people like
I
poop.
completely understand your point.
Wonder Woman
No,
doesn't
I'm
have
just
a
saying,
poop fetish.
There's some people that like poop, so there's probably people that like Wonder Woman
People like
84.
shit sometimes. That's his point.
Yeah, that's my point.
But-
There's
Is there a movie though that
an
you
opinion for everything.
went in thinking like I'm not going to enjoy this, and it was like that was actually good. I enjoyed that.
Probably. I got nothing on the top of my
Nothing
head.
specific. Okay.
I mean, I haven't watched that many movies recently that would fall into that bucket.
It looks
so.
like Keith's got
I
one.
actually did think of a good one of one that I didn't expect. Like, I didn't think it was going to be bad, but I didn't have a high expectations
Yeah.
for it and loved it, and that was Nope. Like, I didn't think, like,
Yeah.
based on Jordan Peele's previous movies, I was like, it should
Yeah.
be okay, but I just, with some of the concerns we had about the direction Hollywood's been in, I'm watching it and it's like, oh, this was really good. I like this, so.
I'm trying to think of like even most recent ones, like some Best Picture
I know,
noms and winners, like Coda. I was not expecting to like
Oh,
that
yeah.
one.
No, Coda was
It
good.
was good.
I like Coda a lot.
It'll be forgotten because it's just a milquetoast like
The
feel-good
Sound of
movie.
Metal. That was good.
Sound of
Oh,
Metal
yes.
was fan-freaking-tastic.
I didn't have a
seen
lot
that,
of
Neil?
expectations for that. Yeah.
Oh, you would like
Sound
that
of
movie.
Metal.
No, I know. I heard y'all review it, and I was like, I should watch that. And
Don't
lot.
set him up with expectations.
A lot of our like goofy movies we review for the holidays, but last year in particular, it was like a Fat Man. I thought was going to be bad. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
pretty decent.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallit, Jack Frost was terrible.
Ginger Dead Man.
Ginger Dead Man was terrible. Those were B movies.
And then Santa's Sleigh. Those were the four we did.
I thought we
Santa's
did,
Sleigh started out pretty decently,
started out
being
great,
cheeky and,
and then it was
terrible.
What about the
but it
evil
went
Santa Claus?
That
The,
was Santa's Sleigh.
No, the one about the demon.
Krampus.
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 Oh, yeah, we did
That
do
one was
Krampus.
okay. I thought it was a little boring.
That one was that was not.
It wasn't terrible,
It wasn't
though.
bad, but
Yeah.
it was mediocre.
Oh, okay, I got one. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Yes,
though.
we got. Yeah, we talk long enough. He
So, so I went to the lake, and I know what kind of movies y'all watch at the lake.
gets Neil
yeah.
Breen.
And I was thinking
More than that.
I'm buckling up for a ride here, and then y'all turned on RRR.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
I was thinking this is gonna be a stupid movie. And I was
RRR
like,
is actually
I
a good
am,
movie.
Like rapt attention on
It-
this movie.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
it was.
It's-
I never finished it, It's a little
on
long,
Netflix.
but
It's long.
it was
It's
really
bombastic and crazy, but amazing.
good. Yeah,
It's
No
just
doubt.
entertaining. Like you could tell, like they just made something entertaining. They weren't caught up in whatever random crap that Hollywood always gets caught up in.
Well, because
Netflix has a string of those kind of movies
Yeah,
now
yeah.
because of the success that movie had on
Telugu.
there.
Yeah.
the Telugu
Man.
films.
Yeah,
Tollywood.
Telugu language films. Well, I still want to see. I can't pronounce it. The one that's based on the Shiva trilogy. They have, I think, 2 of those out. It was the big one that you had talked about.
Yes,
that you
and I'm
mentioned
forgetting the
maybe
name of it
reviewing.
too. We need to return some more Tollywood
I want to see
films
that, and I want to
Bollywood
see.
even.
I want to see that, and I want to see that South Korean film that I shared with you all. The trailer for that. I sent it in a text like a week ago. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yeah, I'm
but
not
it's like a South Korean superhero film, and I was like, man, this looks better than what Marvel's put out in the last few years. So
Probably is better.
No doubt.
I enjoy foreign films.
There's
so.
plenty more, and I'll probably, like always, all of our great segments, I end up thinking of more after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's good to converse, talk about it on the show, and of course, what we can do is have our viewers and our listeners out there, they can email us and actually send in what they thought was a bad movie going in, and they came out thankful that they watched it, that they saw it. And they can just tell us what they're thankful of, like having us here every single week, live on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere.
now that Bachelor in Paradise is over, yeah,
Hey, maybe Megan's watching now, right?
she probably.
Is she happy with the
She better
finale?
be going to bed, Megan. If you're watching this,
Uh-oh.
you need to go to bed.
Tell her. Tell her.
I think he
I always get
every time.
lambasted
I
for
probably
making
do.
sure.
Yeah.
But Neil, go ahead. Point. Yeah, tell
Yeah,
her.
go to bed.
Mm.
It's like 2 minutes till your bedtime. I know you're up.
Naughty.
She's stalling. She always does.
Mm.
And then she's tired the next day, and she's like, "Why am I so tired?" Because you don't go to bed on time.
Maybe she should email us right now and tell us that she's going to bed.
I'm gonna have some text after this. I can see it now.
Can you tell her what our email is so if she wants to email us?
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Beautiful. I hate to say it. I think he might have outdone you.
No, not possible.
He's over there looking up movies or something.
Brahman. I wanted to know the name of that Brahmastra. The one.
It's Brahman, isn't it?
No, it's
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, it's Brahmastra.
She's up.
Okay.
Brahmastra.
She's up. She
She
texted,
texted me. She sent me one of those waving emojis.
All right, here we go.
Go to bed. Go to
bad
bed,
girl.
Megan.
Here we go.
You
Here we go. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Started off a little rocky there, Keith.
Yeah,
had
is he
to-
gonna do it again?
You need a
Drink of water?
yeah,
You
get a
want me
drink of water.
Hold on, yeah. Let him get a drink of water. He's had too much beer.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Just
Better.
beautiful.
Yep.
Just
Stunning.
My voice is kind of out right now, so
It's
I
all right.
can't.
It's all right. We've had a lot. To
I can't
discuss
go as
tonight,
deep as I
you know?
normally go.
Hey, I've got goosebumps. It's fine.
It's all right. That's all that matters. And as always, you can like, share, subscribe, and follow us on all of our wonderful social media accounts right there at the bottom of the screen. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, and of course, just search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube. That's the first one, or you can just type in youtube.com/@Red Moon Productions. And
YouTuber.
our page pops up right there. We'd love all of you all
Just-
to like, share, and subscribe.
Good old tubers.
Tubers! We're the tuber generation.
Tubers.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the
Tubers
Red
are
Moon
potatoes,
Podcast.
aren't they? Yeah.
We want to wish everybody out
Are they?
there a
It's a
wonderful
type of plant.
Thanksgiving.
See, it's like a potato tuber.
Okay, wait, show the audience
I thought it was
now.
a spud. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tuber. I'm just thinking of something.
Oh, you never
else.
heard the term tuber before?
Potato.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tuber.
I've never heard of it.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. I'm
I had no
surprised.
clue.
Yeah. I just thought that was like common knowledge.
idea.
I did. I thought tubers was common knowledge.
Edie's about to lose her mind.
She is.
Yeah, she
She's-
knows.
She knows what time we end the show, and it's past time. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this week. We're back next week with a review of... Oh, crap. I forgot. We have our Christmas reviews coming up. We're doing unconventional Christmas movies, which happen to coincide. We have a surprise at the end of the month. We're not going to tell our
We
viewers.
won't reveal that one.
But we
until-
Are you
do.
gonna reveal it to me? Because I
Yeah,
don't know.
we will. But it is... Okay, it's Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare. We're starting with Nightmare Before Christmas next week. Then we're
Because
doing...
it's, that transition from
Violent
Halloween,
Night.
Thanksgiving to Christmas. Yeah, Violent Night.
Violent Night is the new movie on the block the week after.
Uh-huh.
We're doing Edward Scissorhands.
And then the surprise.
The surprise will be the fourth
The,
week leading into Christmas.
The big release this week was the Fablemans, correct?
Yes,
we're
that's
going to try
yep.
to review the Fablemans.
So if you want to be a part of what we're watching next week, it's Fablemans
And A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
We've had a lot of people ask us about reviewing that one, so I guess we could finally tell
We're reviewing
those two people that we're reviewing it.
Those two people. So many people. All right, guys, that's going to do it. We hope you all have a wonderful, blessed Thanksgiving holiday. Go out there, share the love with your family, and express all the thanks that you have for another day on this planet and the beautiful, wonderful life of God has given us.
It's a wonderful life.
I had to get it out there. All righty, guys, that's
No
going to
man's
do
a
it.
failure who has friends.
Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside Vanilla Steam.
You just said my name.
What's your real name?
Sean Sebastian.
And,
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
of course, our special guest host.
Nino, bye.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.